Hello everyone! Today, for those of you that are familiar with the channel and you come back time and time again, thank you very much, but we're going to break format. We're looking at the BetaFPV Advanced Starter Kit. This is a kit, and it comes in a nice little box like this, and it's probably, it is. It is the fastest way to get started flying FPV. Now, I don't typically say things like that, so why is it the fastest way? One, there's no computer stuff. This little thing is running in FE. And there's no BetaFlight on it, so there's no worries about USB port or USB cables, all the computer stuff, downloading BetaFlight, installing the application, making sure you have the drivers from the front of the application installed. Is your USB cable, is it a charge-only cable? Is it data as well? Is it working? Do I need to run the Impulse RC driver fixer? And then I've gotten into BetaFlight, and what are all these things in here? How do I set up modes? How do I set up my radio? All these things that many of you have already learned, and we should wear that like a badge of honor, because FPV is not easy. It is hard. And we get to a day where it becomes easy, it becomes second nature, but we spend a lot of money in the process, and we spend a whole lot of time. And this kit boils it down. It's dead simple. It comes with a radio that many people like. A little bit small for me, but for starters, this is the best radio I can think of for starting. Now, if you're going to blow out the budget, there's all sorts of options. I'm always a little bit cautious about this. Maybe it has to do with my age or my upbringing, but FPV might not be for you. You know, I remember my first few flights, and I got kind of dizzy and woozy. It took some time, but I got over it, probably about 10 flights or so. And even after that, you know, I had some balance issues. I had to find something I sit when I fly. I don't really practice standing up because, well, I'm not young, so why stand? Sit. But the radio's already set up for you. You don't have to learn about mixers and setting up your switches for 3 positions or 2 positions and what aux channel they are in BetaFlight. You don't have to worry about those things. It's all come done for you. And I think this little quad fly is pretty nice. Now, I didn't focus on flying it like I typically do. I didn't look at performance necessarily. I fly it, and it flies nice. We're going to take a look at that here in just a minute. But this kit isn't perfect. There's a couple things we need to see so that we make sure that those getting started are aware of what you're getting into. So let's get started. So as you can see by my labeling on the left, I have actually pointed a cell phone at the goggles, and I'm recording the screen. So this is actually what you see in the screen. And the reason why I did this is I noticed a large discrepancy between the DVR recording and what I saw in the goggles. Of course, during this flight, I'm not using the goggles because I've got the camera pointed to it. And also the DVR and some of the glitches. Now, that could be a card function. I didn't go a whole hog and test a whole bunch of different cards. But the DVR seems to be one of the warts of this case. The DVR works. It just doesn't work great. As far as my opinion goes, there are very few DVRs that work great. I have switched goggles because of DVR issues. The Fat Shark Scout goggles, I hear, are very good DVRs, but I've been flying the Orca goggles. And that's something I should mention. When I'm flying most of the time on the review channel, I am using a goggle setup that costs 3.5 times what this kit costs. So yeah, you'll end up spending a lot of money if this is something that you really love and enjoy, but getting started in a budget-friendly manner is much more safe. And you can see that there are times where on the DVR it would be completely unflyable. And again, another reason why I'm showing this to you. We had a huge glitch there. You might have wondered how I'm still flying. This particular day was not a good reception day. Normally, I get very clear signal all throughout the house on all my flights all the time. And most of the time when I flew this, I did. But this particular day, I don't know if there was a solar flare or extra humidity inside the house or what was going on. But as we watch this through and we get near the end, I actually set it down. Again, I'm using my Orca goggles with the rapid fire and all the typical manner that I usually do. And I set it down and I holler out that I can't see because I was going to ask my son to go find it and pick it up. The reception comes back and I take back off again. That's at about the 3-minute mark, so we have a little ways to go before we see that. But this gives you an idea of how it flies, and you get to see the goggle screen and the reception that you would get inside your house. Well, inside my house. My house is made of typical sheetrock drywall construction, so if you live in a cement house or with aluminum studs or whatever, you know, they make houses out of in your area, your reception could vary. I am running the stock antennas on the goggles. I didn't change those out. I didn't reposition them. I sat in my normal spot, and I flew with the goggles sitting on the table right in front of me. If you're eagle-eyed as we fly by every once in a while, I'm at that table that's over in the window. We're headed that way now. That's where I'm sitting. And that's the best spot I have found in my house to fly FPV. I get the best reception all over the place. So that's one tip for anyone who's starting out flying. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have a big house like you, and that's understandable. But then you can fly this outside. And that's why, one of the big reasons why I recommend this kit over the brushed kit. The brushed kit is just going to lack the power that you're going to need to fly outside against much of a breeze. I don't typically recommend this format. Here's where I set it down.
I cannot see at all. Oh, now I see. I don't know what that's all about.
So I don't recommend whoops generally for outside flying, but I know a lot of people do it, and I think it's a little bit of my bias because I live in a place where it's fairly rare that we have low wind or windless days. Most of the time we have some form of wind. Fortunately, I fly a lot in the backyard, so we have trees and houses that protect me from most of the wind in the area, but you can still feel it when you get a 5 to 7 mile an hour breeze against a whoop type of quad where it does push you around a little bit. I do fly this outside. We do the same thing outside. Oddly enough, I lost my SD card when I did that outside flight, which is fine because I pointed the camera at the screen and I recorded it that way, so I don't need to worry about that lost SD card. Thankfully, it wasn't a prized SD card and it didn't have anything else on it. But the quad flies well. It's very responsive, but there is an issue with the quad and rates. This was something I spent some extra time with. I actually reached out to Not Fast Enough himself on his Discord server. He's the creator of NFE, but keep in mind, he didn't have anything to do with this product. NFE is kind of an open source project, and BetaFPV is using it for their own purposes, which does make all the setup and bits that you might need to otherwise do very, very straightforward. You can charge, get out of the box, read the manual real quick, and you're off and flying. We'll get into the radio stuff when we get back to the desk so I can show you that very clearly. But in the next phase, I do want to show you that outside flight. We'll just look at a sample. As you can see here, we're going to get close to 5 minutes of flying how I fly inside. I am flying in acro. It's just how I fly inside. I'm going to get tied up in the towel over here, which is pretty much when I was coming in to end the flight anyways. On the outside flying, I really spent most of my time focused on doing things I shouldn't have. And when we get back to the desk and we run through those discussion points, I'll do a little picture-in-picture, and I'll show you all the turtle moding I did when I shouldn't have been doing it. So if you're familiar with kind of my bit on turtle mode, is you should use turtle mode when you can't walk or reasonably get the quad. It's a retrieval, an emergency situation, so to speak. But I turtle moded this thing all sorts of times in the grass. I would get hung up. There was 4 times, I could be wrong about that. There was more than just 2 or 3 times where the prop wouldn't spin when I tried to turtle mode, and I went over and got it, and it was still fine. And the reason why, for those that aren't kind of deep into this FPV thing, is turtle mode can be very hard on these little micros. It can actually burn a motor or an ESC. So caution in using turtle mode, which is flip over after crash in beta flight. Basically, if you're upside down, you disarm, you turn on turtle mode, you rearm, you flick the right hand stick in one direction just a little bit, just give it enough to flip over, don't get full stick, and then the quad rights itself, you disarm, turn off turtle mode, rearm, and you're back off and flying. It's really handy, especially if you get hung up on a roof or a tree or somewhere where you can't get it, and it's the last option that you have, and it's really nice inside the house because, you know, most of the time you've landed on, in our case, you've landed on the hard floor, and I can just turtle mode it right over and take back off again and enjoy my flying and staying in my comfy chair. But it flies well. There's a little bit of range issues. You shouldn't get any really basic kit and expect great range. I think people are getting pretty good range out of the radio, and you'll get, depending upon your environment, the goggles will get reasonable range. So if you're wanting to fly way out, then you're going to have to spend a whole lot more money, and that's really outside of the market for this kit. This is getting started. This is staying close in. If you're flying at a big open field, your range will be a lot better than it would be in an area like mine where I'm getting behind greenery, which has water inside of it, and you've got humidity with the air. We've had some really high humidity. Humidity's bad for RF. Anything between you and the quad is essentially going to make your reception in the goggles a little bit worse. And outside flying, I got a little less time than I did inside. Inside, I think we I cut the video off at like 452, I think, and then outside I think I get about 423 or something like that through the end of this flight. So good long flight times on the 2 batteries that are included in the kit. This is a 75 millimeter quad, and they are running tri-blades on it that has 1103 motors. A nice little setup, a really good kit for getting started and jumping right in. You don't have to do all the computer stuff that I mentioned in the intro, and I think that can be a great boon for those wanting to get started, because it can be a barrier of having to have all that education or spend the money, get the stuff, and then you have to educate yourself, because then you learn that, oh, I don't know how to make all this stuff work together, or to, you know, how to arm it. What happens when I arm it? What do I do next? Most of those things are taken care of for you in this kit. You don't have to learn about binding. Binding can be really frustrating. You've got a radio that you can bind more than one model to. That was a question I had specifically, and I've got a little proof of concept as far as binding 2 different quads to this that I'll show you at the desk. It ticks off a lot of boxes, and Emax has got a kit out. It's one I've recommended a number of times, but the big difference between this is the radio. The radio, I feel, is much more hobby grade than the Emax kit, and it comes in at under $200, this advanced starter kit. To tell you a little bit about why I don't go for the standard starter kit, it's mainly because it's going to be lower powered, although it is lower weight. The lower power can be beneficial to someone who's starting out, but lower power and you're starting out, you probably should start outside your front yard, your parking lot, your local park, somewhere close by that you can fly to a lot, because flying a lot is really important to learning and having fun. And if you're flying brushed outside, it can be more challenging, especially if you have any sort of breeze. But I think this is a better overall starter kit for those that are wanting to get into the hobby flying right away. Now let's move into the problem that I've got with the rates. So we're going to go in and we're going to look at my rates. You can see they're at 950 right here, and I'm getting a little bit of this movement. This is from my Orca goggles. My rapid fire finally locked in, so now it's standardized or stabilized our video. But you get to see those rates, and then I'm going to go ahead and take off. We're going to land, and then we're going to do some other things. What I found, to kind of give you the short story long here, or the long story short, is that when you have rates that go above 950, it seems to accelerate more than you would expect. So if you're at 950 and you go to 970, so a 20 point bump in the scale of 1,000, which shouldn't be that much, it almost doubles. At least that's what it feels like, and we're going to show a little bit of that during this. And if you go over 1,000, which when I was flying inside, I was flying at 1050 were my rates. That felt right to me. But if you do that and you do flips and rolls, it pretty much spins out of control. Here we've bumped it up just a little bit, and you can see I'm trying to figure out that timing. You know, I've got pretty good muscle memory for a snap roll, especially to the right. And we get upside down a few times. There's a bug in there. I sent that to Betaflight. I talked to NFE about this a little bit. He was kind enough, even though he doesn't have anything to do with this particular product, to tell me what he thought about it. Now, he's a developer. I am not, so he was well over my head. He's just an incredibly smart guy, and he's self-taught. He taught himself how to code this stuff. That's incredible. So props to him for doing that and for taking the time to talk to me about. It seems like that maybe they made some concessions, is my take, of having an F1 processor and trying to have an OSD in it as well. And so one of the things they're not doing is catching when the rates are essentially out of control. That's not the good term for it, but you've gotten to see it. Now we've got schmutz all over the camera lens, but I'm going to go ahead. You get like 2.5 rolls on what I think would be my normal single roll. So the rates kind of get out of hand when you get over 1,000. So that's one thing to be careful of. If you get the kit, don't move your rates over 1,000. I would say stay at 950 or lower. I use pretty high rates, so I'm a little bit of an odd duck in that fashion. The next bit I think people would want to see is about dives. You know, building dives or dives in general, diving down nice tall trees is kind of a fun thing. So I do a dive here, and I do find that depending upon your technique and when you start to pull out, and by pull out I mean when you start to add throttle, it will yaw wash out. Now, when we say yaw wash out, which is kind of I don't know who came up with the term. We've just been saying it online. It is where the quad will pitch up and usually yaw or turn left or right. I find it generally turns left real quick. Now, it will do this, and I think if you're starting out, you should be avoiding dives and just learning to really get your hang of flying regular upright style, and then you can start to work in some flips and some rolls and maybe some other moves that you might work in. I think doing a dive right out of the chute is something that is a little bit not throwing caution to the wind. But what you will find is that in some cases it will yaw wash out or pitch up uncontrollably and then turn left or right. And it's not going to happen 100% of the time, but depending upon your technique, it may happen. Before we get started at the desk, I wanted to show you one of my early quads. This isn't my first quad by any stretch, but I think this was a quad that I was flying in my first year. And just look at how much things have changed. It is crazy. These are old Hubsan props. These were the best props around. Brushed picnic quads. Gnarly FPV made this backpack. It was called a backpack, and I believe this is a Saiski or Saisky. It's so dirty. Quantum, yeah, that's a Hobby King board. This just popped on Facebook here a day or two ago, and then I remembered I still had this thing. So I wanted to show this to you. Don't let somebody fool you that you can't enjoy FPV without spending a lot of money. Look at where I started doing micros. Of course, this is getting close to 4 years ago, but this was a lot of fun. At the time, it was a lot of fun, and I think this setup can be a lot of fun for you. I've got links down in the video description to this kit. If you're ordering internationally, you probably want to order directly from BetaFPV. If you're here in the US, I think RDQ has some stock, or at least they did when I first got this kit, which was about 2 weeks ago. I'll find various links to various shops to where you can buy this if you want to check it out. And I was kind of thinking about this from the standpoint of my own kids and who I would give this to. And I think it really, for me, it depends a lot on interest. What my 10-year-old, I would turn her loose with this. Look at that. Look at how dirty and messed up this thing is. I have been beating the sin out of this thing because one of my grave concerns is the reliability of the components. Are they going to work every time you want to go out and fly? And we all crash differently, and I can't rely on just my crashing. So I just kept doing things that I thought I shouldn't be doing, and I practiced some new things that were suggested on the new open space of the yard, and I beat it up and I couldn't break it. Now, if you're flying over concrete, that's not a good idea if you're starting. Find yourself a grassy field somewhere with a lot of grass, and that is your best recipe to get started. As you can see, it takes a whole lot of grass. I did some trimming. I've got grass clear up in here. And anyways, I beat this thing up. As you're probably looking in one of the corners, I'll have some footage of crashes and various other flight footage that you might want to see. It does come with two BT20 connected BetaFPV 450 milliamp batteries. To cover the radio real quick, I'm not going to go into great detail because they do have instructions and there are other videos on this. Of course, this is your power button, but the most important part, like if you're flying mode 2 like I do, I think the majority of people fly mode 2. If you're a mode 1 flyer, that's not a stone thrown against you. I just think most people fly mode 2. So this is your arm disarm. This is your modes. This is turtle mode, and I don't think this one does anything. And that's pretty much it. Turn this thing on, and you're off and running. Of course, you need to have a battery, and you need to have the goggles on. But it's really simple. You charge it through a USB port, so that's nice and easy. Surely you've got a cell phone around. I do encourage you to unplug the battery between uses. I don't know if I had a cell go bad or if it drained the battery overnight, because when I went to fly this one particular day, I came back and it had no power, and then I put it on the charger and it just had no voltage whatsoever. So I'm not certain if the battery just went bad on me. This is a different battery, of course, or if this radio has a tendency to drain batteries over the course of its time when it's off. We've got two buttons here on the back, set up and bind. The binding, of course, is self-explanatory. This has all been covered in other videos. The main things for someone getting started: arm, disarm, modes, turtle mode. Those are the basic things. And you have horizon, and race mode built into it. So depending upon what sort of flying you want to do, if you want to do stabilized or acro like I was, or if you want to do the race, which is kind of a partially stabilized flight mode, you can do that. It's already set up between the quad and the radio. You don't have to learn how to do anything other than what each switch is. Mainly you just want to arm and disarm to get started. Goggles have a DVR, of course. I already showed you that. We have the little slot that the SD card goes in. We also have audio. Didn't test that at all. I don't fly with audio. It's not something that occurred to me to test. We do have USB charging right here. You do have a search button. Remember, if you're getting any sort of like trippy sort of looking imagery on your screen, it's probably that you're on a near channel, you're not on the exact channel. So if you get kind of rainbow effect and some static, that is a near channel, it's not the right channel. So you may have to use your band and channel button. But I did find that it locked on fine for me during my uses. We also have a reset, so if it happens to get locked up for some reason, I have never experienced that on goggles, but it is there just in case you would take a paper clip and just push it right down in there. The battery is in the front of the goggles as standard. A nice thing about this that I kind of noticed was that even though I wear glasses, I was able to focus on the screen. It was difficult for me to fly with these just because I'm used to a much different view, and this is a very immersive, big view. We do have some really nice foam around here, although if you're flying in the heat, it's going to get sweaty, but you know, you could probably check to see on their site, this is not stuck on with Velcro, that's just stuck on. Check to see if you can get more of this foam, because I think with the number of uses in hot times where your face sweats, at least my face sweats, that you may want to replace this foam. That may be one other thing that I didn't think of. So as far as the downsides of the quad that I mentioned previously in my intro, you've got the rates issue that if you want to use for some reason rates above 1,000, that can be problematic. It can spin out of control quite easily. You've got goggles, and the DVR just doesn't seem to be implemented very well, because you get a much better image on screen, or much less breakup on screen than you do from the DVR recording. And that could be a downer if you're wanting to share with others. So that's something that you have to kind of wrestle with. We do have a couple of simple antennas. Got the pin in here, no pin in there. Nose piece is fairly good size, so depending upon the size and shape of your face and nose, that should be, I would think that would be enough for at least ordinary faces. I guess I have a little bit of an ordinary face. Hopefully it works out for anyone else who is concerned or looking at these goggles. It is a 3-position goggle. I found that they're comfortable. It harkens back to my day. I started on box goggles, Hobby King Quantum goggles. They were this foam box that had a screen in it that you squeezed it together, and it had these sliding pieces with the Fresnel lens in the middle of it. And if you got humidity behind it, which pretty much all warmer months we'd get humidity behind it, you just had to let it sit until it took care of itself. This does not have a fan, but it does seem to be sealed up, because when I use this outside, I did not notice any humidity getting behind here. Of course, with use, that can change because the framing or the sealing of the box could loosen up through use. Not normal use, I wouldn't think, but you know, the bangs that equipment takes sometimes when we handle them, it could possibly get humidity behind there. But I was thinking back about the price point of this and getting started. Even my old goggles, I think, cost as much as this entire kit. Because if I remember correctly, the Quantum, or the Hobby King Quantum goggles with the screen in it, and the basic sock was like $65 or $75. And then I bought a big honkin' receiver, which was bigger than this quad, that went in the sock portion of that, and an antenna. I think that was around almost $100. So just my old box goggles was like $170 to $180. And this kit, you get everything and batteries. Oh, I didn't include the battery in my original goggle pricing. I can't remember. 20 bucks. Let's just say 20 bucks for the battery. Probably a 3S 1500 milliamp battery. Maybe I got it for 15, but still, the price of my old goggles is probably about what you'd spend on an entire setup. It does come with a couple of manuals, typical support card. An insider bag of goodies is a battery charger and or tester. You see here, you can charge on either, or you can test on this port to see what your battery voltage is. Let's plug one in to look at it, 3.74. So you can plug this in if you want to charge your batteries. You don't even need to, everything is here. Everything is here. You got a USB cable right here, so you can plug that into whatever you need to plug it into in order to go fly. We've got a prop remover. I typically just remove props with my fingers. I hold the bell through the hoop. Hopefully you can see this a little bit. And then I grab the hub of the prop, which is this center part, and I just twist and pull. Twist and pull, and it comes right off. And then I apply it. Boy, look at that prop. It's kind of chewed up. And then I apply it the same way. I hold the bell, twist and push, and it seems to work out fine. And then what's left in our last silver bag? Oh, we got a spare set of props. So I'll have links, as I said previously, down to the product and where you can get it. Again, if you're probably international, you probably want to go through BetaFPV Direct. If you're in the US, I know Race Day Quads, when I looked before I started recording this video, they had stock. Other shops are probably carrying it as well. Look for your favorite shop. I'll find all the shops that have listings for it. I'll put it in the video description down below. And many of you may have noticed this little guy over here. BetaFPV, if you haven't commissioned Mr. Wiggles to make you one, you should. Send me a message. I'll get you in touch with him. You need to make some of these for your people. Should be on every desk at BetaFPV. And I got two. A whoop competition, a friendly, fun flight experience expanding competition. The deadline is coming up to get involved in that. I'll put a link down in the video description to that as well. I think we have 100 or 111 last I checked in there, and that's not a competition that's cutthroat. It's fun. Like I said, it can help you expand your flight envelope. I did it last year. This year I'm going to be doing some judging, which makes me a little bit nervous, but thankfully I'm not a lone judge. There is a group of us that are going to be doing the judging. Get involved, have some fun, good group. If you want to get started, or you got somebody you'd like to get started FPV, this is the kit I recommend. And if you ask me in the future, it'll probably be the kit I recommend then too. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.